Okay, this video is going to be on the worst aspect of Wolcen. This game has gotten a lot of bad press. I've had people ask me questions because I'm making Wolcen videos. Is the game worth it? You know, is the press kind of over-exaggerating things? Would you recommend the game? I've gotten some questions from people. Here's just a small tidbit. And I'm going to talk about this in terms of a game design thing, and I'm also just going to talk about it in terms of the downsides. So, here's going to be my video. While I'm doing the video, this is the first topic. Socket rolling is the worst aspect of this game. More than any bugs, more than nodes not working, more than tooltips being inaccurate or just vague and unspecific. This is the worst aspect of the game because this is how you should be playing this game. Is that you download a third-party program and you set it to automate this process because it's so bad. So, what is a great part of Wolcen is that a lot of the late game crafting and end game gearing up process is not you doing this. Right now, my hand is off the mouse and keyboard because the program automates your mouse into this specific spot on the screen. So I can't alt tab, I can't use my mouse to do anything else. And this needs to be the focus window or whatever. I'm going for 3 offensive 1 sockets because that's the best for any attacking build. And what's great about the Champions of Stormfall things, and you get productivity, and you get, you can upgrade the quality of an item, or the rarity, or, do missions to get some legendary crafting reagents, or transfer gold into Primordial Affinity, all these cool things, right? What's great about that system is that instead of being in a screen like this, or in my inventory, and using crafting materials like tens or hundreds, or even in the worst case, thousands of times in order to get a result out of the crafting, instead what you do is you put the item in, you say, yes, start this mission, it's capped at 5, and then what you do is you go play the goddamn fucking game. And you go kill shit. And it's fun, and you have interactive gameplay that you're doing. And then, through the process of playing the game, you get the crafting result, right? Imagine if there was a Champions of Stormfall mission that said, insert 3 gems, like you can have, for example, physical, rend, and toxic, and those are associated with offense. And so if I put in 3 physical gems, it will give me 3 offensive 1 sockets. If I put in 3 rend gems, it will give me 3 offensive 2 sockets. And if I put in 3 toxic gems, it will give me 3 offensive 3 sockets. So cool, we got the one thing there. Let's check our little thing. That took 174 rolls. Wow, great interactive gameplay system here. All right, let's go for the second one here. These are just level 150 base items that I'm going to use for crafting at some point. So I figured I might as well, while I'm talking, accomplish 2 things at once, since I'm going to have this screen sat here open for minutes and minutes at a time. I've sat here for over 700 rolls. That was for my chest piece that I needed 3 defensive 3 sockets. So anyway, if you put in 3 toxic 3 gems, you could get 3 offensive 3 sockets. You could do the same thing for elemental and associated with defensive, and then occult associated with support sockets or something. I don't know. That's something I made up off the top of my head. And then you insert the item, those 3 gems, you start the thing, and then you go run a rift. You get some productivity to it, and then you end up getting the item. It can cost gold if you want this to still be a gold sink. I don't know, or you could just select it from a list of what sockets you want and just, like, multiply this gold number by 100 and just let me do it in 5 seconds instead of 5 minutes because this is dumb. Alright, well, those happened surprisingly fast. So, that says after 0 rolls. I don't know what the other one was. While we're waiting here, let's just do some other bows while I'm talking. So, that's my basic feedback as far as socket rolling goes. Is that it's by far the worst aspect to this game, and it's so easily fixable and obviously fixable, and I'm not sure if the game designers intended that that's why the Champions of Stormfall missions work the way they do, is because it means you're playing the game more. Like, you have higher uptime playing the game. The percentage of the time that the game is open and you're playing it is higher. Like, that's such an obviously good thing. I don't know how they could succeed so well at that with some of the crafting stuff and some of the missions, while also failing at it so hard with the socketing. So, would I recommend the game? Yes. It's fun if you like playing RPGs and optimizing stuff. Um, if you like Diablo 3 and Path of Exile, I think you'll like the game. Is it going to be frustrating that the build you might want to do is reliant on a node that doesn't work, or a bug is currently happening that makes your skill weaker than it should be, or anything else? Yes, that's very frustrating. That should get fixed within a week or two, so I would still recommend the game. I mean, it's up to you at this point. Basically, you're paying for a alpha slash beta experience right now, and for some people that's still fun. For me, it's still fun. I've put around 70 hours, I would say, into the game so far. But for other people, it's very frustrating, especially the more impactful bugs where your stash was getting deleted or various things like that. That those were obviously much more frustrating for the players. I didn't encounter those specifically, so my experience has probably been a bit above average. But yeah, that's about it. My other main feedback is basically right now that a lot of the skills and runes are very not that interesting, and I think like there's going to basically end up being around probably like 10 to 15 builds, and that's going to be kind of the whole meta, just because there's so few skills that really scale damage that well, and there's so few, like there's basically just a few ways of scaling the damage to the point that you need to for the endgame stuff, because endgame like stuff has like, I don't know, billions or trillions of HP or something. Um, and so like you kind of need to scale the damage pretty high. So if stuff just doesn't scale as well, it's kind of not viable. And then there's just a bunch of skills that aren't very useful. So part of the problem is that the skills, like there's like 50 skills or something, or 40, but they're limited by the weapon types you can use. So I think if you wield a pistol and a sword, or a pistol and a catalyst, that gives you the most options. Or maybe a sword and a catalyst or something, I'm not sure. But basically, dual wielding two different types of weapons gives you access to most of the options, but not all of them. And you can still get access to basically all of them through the can cast X skill mod that can roll in late game untainted stuff from the like the special rolls on items or whatever. So you can basically make a build out of whatever skills you want in theory if you go after the rolls hard enough, but that number of skills is just really small for an ARPG, I feel like, and the variety in ways of scaling them and things like that. Like most of the time, if you're picking a skill, you're probably going to be using like maybe one or maybe two or three maximum different rune setups. There's not a lot of rune customizability right now, just because some runes are just kind of strictly better than others in terms of like damage, or some are just not really ever going to be useful that much. Like a chance for a 20% slow doesn't really impact anything. So like, why would you ever pick that rune? Some runes are just really weird and seem like you would never pick them in like almost any build. So yeah, I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of my main two biggest downsides right now are the socket rolling, the bugs, and the limited amount of skills. Some of the positives for this game, as in terms of things that I think are really well done, I think the Champions of Stormfall endgame stuff is really well done outside of crafting and sockets. I think crafting materials should be more common, because crafting especially seems kind of restricted right now. I know their focus is on other things other than game design. It's mostly on fixing bugs and stuff right now, but the crafting materials seem to have an especially low drop rate, and you can't really use them that much. And scarcity is cool and all, but I think crafting more often would be fun and more interesting to create. Like you can invest into an item, and it shouldn't impact things too much, I think, in terms of like the rate at which you acquire better items than endgame items, because I still think most of the endgame items you're going to rely on untainted mods that you can only get from running the expeditions or whatever they're called. So, and lots of other stuff like that. Like the endgame is pretty time gated right now on like leveling up to level 90 takes a long time. Leveling your skills to level 90 takes a long time. Completing all the Champions of Stormfall stuff takes a long time. Just reaching level 187 takes a long time. I'm only at like level 154 right now or something. I got to 151 for the item level on weapons and stuff like that up for crafting purposes, and then I've just been running untainted stuff there for a little while, so I haven't progressed mine too much further. I think I actually should have gone to 160 in hindsight, now that I know what I do about how the crafting works, but I thought it was 150, so anyway. Some of the stuff that's pretty cool, I like the rage and willpower mechanic. Most builds are just going to end up focusing on one or the other. Some of the hybrid builds would be good, but I think some of the nodes aren't really working for it. But I think trying to make a hybrid build viable is something that I'll eventually get around to doing. Right now I'm just focusing on my attack build, and I'm going to kind of optimize it and get it really solid in the endgame, and really like almost Bis kind of level. And then I'm going to work on a spellcasting character next, as kind of an alt, and I'm just going to invest a lot less time into it, but it'll just be a fun change of pace, kind of. And then a hybrid build I haven't really explored too much, but that'll probably eventually be my third character. But for the most part, it seems like kind of... and I also want to try and use some undervalued skills. Like, I think late game, the Stings of Crarion skill, people seem to think that's a pretty weak skill. I think it could actually be scaled to be pretty strong. Also, I don't know how many rolls this is on. Let's check quickly here. Oh, I can't check until it's done. Okay, well, we'll find out when it's done then. But yeah, this roll has currently been going on for quite a while, as you can see. I don't know how many minutes this is, but it's too many minutes for me to be sitting here clicking a button. Oh, and also, if you happen to be clicking this manually too fast and you roll past the one that you want, well, have fun sitting here for another 5 or 10 minutes and clicking the button another, like, 700 times until you get the sockets you want again. So yeah, I've done that once or twice. It's pretty annoying. Oh, there it finally goes. So let's see how many rolls that was. 680. Yay, great system. Please change this immediately. This is awful. And this should never have made it into a release candidate version of the game. Continuing. I think a lot of the... Back to what I was saying about the game and stuff. The Rage and Willpower is really cool. I really like the Gate of Fates and the attribute system. Optimizing that is pretty fun. I like the ailment system. I think that is also pretty fun. So those are the main, like, unique kind of aspects to the game that I think they did really well, that I find very interesting in order to think about in terms of, like, optimizing a character and things like that. If you're not a person that really likes a lot of math and, like, spreadsheet stuff and optimizing stuff and going for efficient things and a lot of percentage values and weighing the pros and cons of different things like that, if you're not a person that can really, like, I don't know how to describe it other than you have that optimization, like, itch or, like, obsessive mode in your brain where you want to think about a build, and, like, I don't know how many times I've redone my Gates of Fate skill tree at this point. It's probably close to 100, and I'm only level 75. So on average, I'm doing it, like, probably more than once a level. Like, it's really, like, you don't do it very much at the beginning. Like, levels 1 through 30, I probably swapped it around maybe once or twice. Part of it is because you don't have gold that early on, and that's why I duped gold. I think, especially for the way the game is working right now, where things are bugged and not working currently, that skill respecs and attribute respecs should be free. But anyway, that's why I duped gold, as I mentioned, or people commented on one of my other videos talking about that. So I think the Gates of Fate's spinning is very cool for leveling builds and leveling guides, because in some other skill trees like Path of Exile, for example, you either don't have access to endgame stuff nearly as quickly, or if you want to have, like, an optimal endgame build with your points, you don't get access to a lot of your more powerful nodes until later, just because of the way the, like, efficient pathing around the tree works or something like that. Whereas with the Gate of Fates, with the way you can circle around it, you can basically beeline it straight for your most powerful node instantly, no matter where you're starting or what second ring nodes you want to get first. You can always do that. So you can always get, like, your priority stuff early on and then spin it around later, and the respecs are fairly cheap. Like, in Path of Exile, you need Points of Regret or something or whatever, Orbs of Regret. And you need several of them to respec your tree, so you kind of need to have your whole tree planned out from the beginning in Path of Exile, or at least fairly close to it, or, like, following a guide or something. Whereas this, you don't need to follow a guide, and if you do, the guides can be much more dynamic in saying, if you prefer this, you can get this earlier, you know, do you want to focus on offense or defense, and you can spin the tree around, and most of the pathing works out that, like, generally it's fine. if you really are optimizing it, you do still want to plan out a build, but I think that's fine. Like, I think optimizing stuff is a part, like a fun part of the game. I tweeted out a few days ago that you don't even need the actual gameplay. Like, for me, just giving me the skill tree planner is almost fun in and of itself, and I spend tens or almost hundreds of hours just in the skill tree planner, planning out builds and optimizing stuff, and seeing how I can save 1 point by pathing a different way, or pathing 1 extra point, but it gets me way more stats in total, or more stats that I care about, and things like that. So those things are really fun. And I really, so far, like that. The low amount of skills is kind of frustrating. The low amount of crafting materials is kind of frustrating. And I would say the character progression feels a little bit slow. Mostly as a result of the crafting, I think, that you don't get a lot of, or a ton of items that really increase in power. Like, some of the power jumps are kind of weird, basically. After you're done with the campaign, it should take you about, I would say, 5 to 10 to 20 hours, somewhere in there, depending on whether you're kind of like a fast, medium, or a slowish player. I don't think 20 hours. 20 hours sounds long for the campaign. Maybe I'm a little bit wrong on that, but basically the campaign isn't too long, or the story acts, or whatever you want to call it. And you'll end up around level 30, 35, 40 range. And that's a good enough core to get, like, the core stuff on most builds. Then, like, super late game builds, you get around level 60, 65, 70 range for your core. Like, that's sort of when you're starting to hit endgame stuff and you're starting to progress the expeditions, and that's when you're pushing the monster level into, like, the 90, 100 range. And then, like, level 70 plus is kind of like the true endgame, it feels like, where that's where you're getting into the high-level expeditions, where you're, like, at level 150, and you're starting to get endgame highest tier rolls and things like that. But some of the jumps, like after level 60 or something, most of the rolls on your gear just, like, straight up double overnight. I think some of that could be smoothed out a little bit better, and maybe have a bit more character progression early on, and less backloaded, I guess, would be my suggestion for that. I think gems could also drop a little bit more often. Part of the reason that they drop infrequently, I think, is due to the crafting right now, is that they don't want you to have gem crafting available, like, infinitely. It's enough where you can use it pretty, like, they drop at about an equal rate of a singular gem type to your crafting materials, I would say. You can get more crafting materials through the missions and stuff, so eventually I think that won't hold true, but for now it does. But I think the gems, because you're using them in your gear and you're upgrading the gem levels so often, it can be kind of frustrating when, like, I have access to tier 10 gems, but I still have I can only use a tier 8 gem in my weapon because I want to apply a certain ailment with it, and I just had no tier 9 or tier 10 gems drop of my specific type. So I think gem drop rates could increase, at least for maybe your first, like, 20 gems that you get of that type or something, and then maybe drop off a little after that. Or I think, I'm not sure how the crafting works yet. If, like, for example, if I saw 1 gem in and I'm going for a specific crafted roll on the item, if I socket 3 gems in, does that increase the chances? Currently, I don't think it does. I could be wrong about that. But if you want gems to still be a, like, consuming sink kind of thing, where they are still sort of scarce, you could do that for crafting, like, make it so that putting 2 or 3 gems into the item increases the chances or whatever, so that you're consuming more gems through crafting, but it makes the leveling process a little bit smoother. Some stuff like that I would suggest to improve the game. Otherwise, most of it seems like pretty solid. It's pretty fun. Oh yeah, make attack speed like either double, tripled, or even quadrupled in value, because right now it's not even comparable to Critter Wisdom, and you would never scale it in any build, almost ever. So yeah, attack speed scaling is really bad. That should be fixed. A lot of the time on attacks. So let's check how long that one was. 689. Really fun. Love the system. Please change it ASAP. I won't do this one. I'll just end the video there. Four of those is pretty good enough for me for now. I'll end that video there because I'm mostly winding down and I finished most of the points that I was going to make. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Would I recommend Wolcen? Yeah, it's fun if you like ARPGs. Also, the transmog system is really good. I have a toxic weapon now, so this doesn't match, but this is really fun, and when this gets added to more later, that'll be great. The aspects of Apocalypse thing, it's basically just an invulnerability. You don't really use this much in in-game. That could probably be expanded on further. Also, yeah, that's those are the main things. I think I covered that pretty well. Some stuff also could scale into endgame a bit better, like the item or the item on vendors and stuff like that. Like these are still level 75 because it's off my level, and so they'll never roll high tier affixes. And I think the gems in here also, these are limited to tier 8 when I have access to tier 12 gems. So those are just useless, and this has no point. And instead you just have to rely on the unique vendor and things like that. Also, legendaries and uniques, I think, could have a slightly higher drop rate, especially before endgame, so that you can use them while leveling a little bit. Because like right now, you can see I've like still only got 2 unique items equipped or whatever. Because unlocking the uh, whatever dark market or whatever to upgrade stuff into legendaries is kind of tedious. Something that is a minor downside to this, just before I end the video here, is that like if I put, for example, this chest piece, which is pretty good for my build, into the thing, I can't wear the chest piece while it's getting upgraded. That seems kind of weird, and it means I need like secondary chest pieces the in my stash for to wear while this one is getting upgraded if I wanted to upgrade it in quality or to a legendary, for example. So that seems kind of weird that like you should be able to wear the item still while you're upgrading it, because like if it's an item you're wearing, it's probably the best of that slot, so you want to be wearing it, but you also want to upgrade it. I don't know, that's a weird thing that probably should be able to be fixed. I don't know, but that's a weird quirk of that system. But otherwise it's good because it means you play the game. So thumbs up on playing the game. Fix the bugs. Yeah, it's still fun. Not sure that I could like ethically recommend it, but in terms of enjoyment, if you think it's worth it for you, it was worth it enough for me. There you go.